One small, predictable mistake in how operators used a machine handed Allied cryptanalysts the key to read an enemy that thought it was unbreakable. Welcome back. I'm the Archive. Been deciphering quiet victories and old engineering for decades. Today we dig into the three-part campaign of math, machines and human error that cracked the Enigma and gave the Allies a glimpse into the enemy's playbook. Stick around. I'll point out the one routine every Enigma operator was forced in. And how do I say? The Germans had a slick solution, the Enigma machine, an electromechanical cipher that shuffled letters through rotating wheels and a plug board. On paper, it looked airtight. The Allies were blind. Merchant convoys vanished, armies moved like ghosts, U-boats hunted in packs, and no one knew where the next torpedo would come from. The problem was simple and brutal. Intercepting radio signals produced nothing useful unless you could turn that scrambled noise back into clear, actionable words. The stakes were life or death, not just for soldiers, but for nations. The solution didn't arrive as one miracle. It arrived as a long, ugly campaign, part math, part craftsmanship, part industrial-scale tedium. First came a mathematical insight from Polish cryptanalysts who treated Enigma as a system of permutations. That gave the Allies a foothold. Then the British scaled the attack with engineered machines, the bombes, that could test countless settings quickly. Finally, the decrypted output had to be turned into usable intelligence, routed into operations, and protected so fiercely that even generals didn't always know the source. When those pieces worked together, the Allies could read enough of the enemy's traffic to reroute convoys, counterattacks, and save lives. That's the payoff. A coordinated system of minds and machines that turned secrecy into vulnerability. What happened? A few brilliant people found a repeatable, exploitable pattern in how Enigma was used, a human procedure rather than a mathematical flaw, and built tools and workflows to exploit it. Why it mattered? Because reading enemy orders in time changed outcomes on the battlefield. In the Battle of the Atlantic, for instance, knowing where U-boats were allowed convoys to steer clear and avoided catastrophe. That's not hype. That was survival. Here's the counterintuitive bit. The first real breakthroughs came not from Britain, but from Poland. Long before the war, Polish mathematicians had already reverse-engineered crucial parts of Enigma's wiring. They were the ones who shoved the door open and then literally handed the plans to the British as Europe darkened. That early cooperation changed everything. Not a Hollywood lightning bolt, just years of quiet, stubborn work. Enigma was a clever, mechanical beast. Picture a keyboard, a set of rotors and a lamp board. Press a key and current runs through a chain of wires inside the rotors and lights a different lamp. Then a rotor clicks forward and changes the wiring path for the next letter. Add a plug board up front that swaps letter pairs, and you've got a machine where the same plaintext character rarely maps to the same ciphertext twice. The Germans could change rotors, shuffle them, and set starting positions daily. The possible combinations were enormous, astronomically big for the era, so brute force seemed hopeless. The machine didn't rely on a static codebook. It was dynamic. That's why so many smart folks assumed it was unbreakable. But wheels and wires weren't the whole story. The flaw the cryptanalysts exploited was procedural, how people actually used the machine. Operators had to communicate rotor starting positions. The way they did that introduced patterns. That small human shortcut is what Rejewski and his team in Poland turned into a mathematical opening. In the 1930s, Poland took Enigma seriously. Marian Rejewski and his colleagues treated the device as a mathematical permutation machine. They noticed how operators transmitted message keys, sometimes in ways that repeated structure. Using group theory and clever cataloguing, they reconstructed the rotor wirings and made practical devices like the cyclometer and the early generation bombe to hunt daily keys. Their work gave the British a head start, but the Germans kept improving the machine and procedures. When war loomed, the Poles passed their findings and even their equipment to Britain and France. That transfer of knowledge was a quiet act that probably shortened the war. At Bletchley Park, a different kind of scaling happened. Mathematicians like Alan Turing and engineers like Gordon Welchman turned Polish insights into industrial processes. The British approach was to turn elimination into speed. They took educated guesses, cribs, about likely plaintext, routine weather reports, repeated phrases, and used them to test plausible rotor settings. The machine they built for this work was the bombe, a bank of rotating drums that simulated many enigmas at once and hunted for logical contradictions. Here's the clever logic. Enigma never encrypted a letter to itself. That small quirk becomes a powerful filter. Align a guessed plaintext against the ciphertext and rapidly test settings. If any step implies a letter would map to itself, that setting is impossible. The bombes ran through candidate settings at a rate humans could not match, and when they stopped on a viable candidate, cryptanalysts zeroed in on the real key. It was brute force guided by logic, not blind grinding, but targeted elimination. Breaking messages was only half the job. Once decrypted, the raw text had to be translated, analyzed for relevance, and sanitized for distribution without revealing the source. This part of the system, called Ultra, was the intelligence life cycle. Intercept stations fed signals to the codebreakers. Linguists and analysts turned nonsense into meaning. Operations officers decided how to act without tipping off the Germans that their cipher was compromised. Sometimes the Allies created cover stories to explain how they had information. A reconnaissance flight spotted a convoy, or a patrol stumbled across a submarine. Those covers were awkward, but they kept the secret safe. The intelligence was valuable only if it could be used without burning the source. The practical result was huge. In the Atlantic, Ultra let convoys be routed away from known U-boat concentrations. It saved ships, fuel, and lives. Without that edge, Britain's supply lines might have snapped. That's not an exaggeration. Access to reliable signals intelligence was a material factor in keeping the island supplied and in the eventual defeat of the U-boat threat. This whole enterprise sat on a knife edge. Any change in German procedures could black out Bletchley's advantage. The Kriegsmarine's introduction of a 4-rotor Enigma variant in 1942 caused a dramatic blackout, and Allied losses spiked until they caught up. The operation also demanded absolute discretion. Thousands of people who could never tell what they'd done, carrying a secret that could not be mentioned. The psychological weight was enormous, and the intelligence wasn't perfect. Decrypts could be partial, delayed, or ambiguous. Commanders sometimes distrusted the magic reports and acted cautiously. The system bought time and information, but it didn't make war predictable. It made it a little less blind. The technical fallout of the effort reshaped the post-war world. The bombe and its successors were direct ancestors of programmable computing. Colossus, used to attack the Lorenz cipher, was one of the first electronic, digital programmable machines. The minds and methods at Bletchley fed into early computer science, information theory, and artificial intelligence. What started as wartime necessity became peacetime progress. Beyond technology, Enigma's defeat taught a permanent lesson. Security depends on people and procedures as much as on math. Complex systems can be undone by predictable human behavior. The machine was brilliant. It was the users who bent its fate. Today's digital ciphers and networks are more complicated but built on the same human terrain. Encryption is vital, but procedures, policy and human patterns remain attack surfaces. The Enigma story is a reminder that secrecy is procedural, not purely technical, and that a determined, coordinated effort of intellect and engineering can overcome apparent impossibilities. There's a human side to all this. Men and women at Bletchley worked around the clock, reading messages about people who were often unaware that their lives were being saved by unseen readers. They took no public credit, and many carried their contributions silently for decades. Their work felt small in the moment. Decrypts, translations, reports, but accumulated into something enormous. That quiet competence won battles, and that's a kind of heroism that doesn't fit neatly on a medal. If this kind of deep, practical history interests you, subscribe to the archive. We pull apart the technical moments that actually changed the world and explain why they mattered in plain language. Share a comment. Which wartime innovation do you think deserves an episode? I'll surface it from the files. I've been reading these silent victories for a long time. The Enigma story isn't about a single genius or a lucky guess. It's a lesson in persistence, systems thinking, and the stubborn power of human reasoning against complexity. Remember that when someone tells you a problem is unsolvable, often it's only unsolved because nobody's tried the patient, unglamorous work of finding the human angle.